Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. I hope you guys are doing very well. In this video, we're going to be talking about Liverpool and exploring exactly why they are struggling so much this season. Because the top line of, yes, they've got some injuries, that is a big part to play in this. But why does that affect this team so much? That's something that I was thinking about last night. I did my tactical full-time reaction show on this channel. Go check that out. I reacted to the lineups, I reacted to my halftime thoughts on it, and then full-time and answered your questions. So go check that out if you get a second. But then once that's done, the wheels start turning. And what happened was that I started to think about something that Chris Pajak from Redmen TV had sort of put me towards quite a while ago, a year ago, when it was going brilliantly for Liverpool, and it justified exactly why Liverpool were so brilliant last season. And for the exact same reasons, this is why Liverpool are struggling so much this season. What Chris put me forwards towards was, after doing a podcast with Flav, we spoke about how unstoppable Liverpool were. And I was talking about the chemistry of that team and how strong it was. And he put me towards this podcast. It was talent versus teamwork. And that's what I'm going to dive into. The kind of the words that were said on it. I've got the transcript here. There was a really interesting theory that it highlighted how certain teams are able to go beyond the talent that they have in their team to, achieve great things. Looking at like Leicester City or those underdog stories where you see a team that goes, hang on a minute, that team doesn't match up with that team. Why is this team winning? The reason that they're winning is down to cohesion and chemistry. And that's what I just want to kind of talk about and explore here, because I think that is the biggest problem with Liverpool. Can they get around it? I don't know. Let's talk about that at the end of it. But first things first, let me explain the situation that Liverpool have here and see if you guys agree with me. If you don't, like I said, please get involved in the comments below and tell me what you think is the problem here at Liverpool. Because, of course, they're not out of the title race, but there's something isn't right. You can look at tactical elements of it, but I think the biggest part of it is the cohesion of this squad at the moment. If you are enjoying the content at the moment, and in particular you enjoy these kind of videos where I just put forward a theory in my mind and we explore it together, then do two things for me. First of all, hit the like button. It just massively helps every video that I do if you want to support the content. Secondly, hit that subscribe button. I honestly can't believe it, but we might get to 70,000, but we can only do that if you take the time to move your mouse and hit that subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel just yet, hit the notification bell as well, because I'm going to look to do some more live content in the coming weeks. So this is Gainline Game-Changing Analytics. This is a company that looks at cohesion analytics, and the GM of sport for Gainline Analytics is a guy called Simon Strachan. Simon Strachan did a podcast with MIT Sloan Management Review. In particular, the podcast, I think, is called Counterpoints. It's the sports analytics podcast. I'll put a link in the description, but just search that and you'll find this exact podcast from 2019. But Chris sent me this because he'd already seen it, and shout out to Chris. He's just, he's amazing at what he does. And we both have a similar feeling on these kind of things, that looking deeper at the psychology of stuff as well as statistics as well. And this podcast was absolutely fantastic, because what it had was Simon Strachan going into the detail of what gain analytics do, and in the importance of cohesion in getting yourself where you want to be in terms of being successful in sport. And this is what they obviously do. And so here is the transcript from the podcast. And I just thought there were a couple of things that really stood out for me. And when I was thinking about Liverpool and their struggles at the moment, I just started to go back to this, because what makes you great also kind of becomes a weakness when things are taken away from it. So in particular, the point that Simon Strachan and Gain Analytics talk about when they talk about cohesion and the importance of it is that when people look at talent, and when people look at skill, there is actually just so much baggage that comes with that skill and talent. And in particular, how people get on, the dynamics of a team, and in particular, that word again, cohesion. And that's something that Liverpool had in just bundles and bundles and bundles. And now they're struggling to have it. Let's have a look at the situation of Liverpool last season. Alisson, 29 games in goal. Alexander-Arnold, 35. Van Dijk, 38. Joe Gomez, 21. Robertson, 34 games. In DMC, Wijnaldum, Henderson, Milner, but they weren't really playing in that way. But then, look, you knew who your midfield three were. Wijnaldum, Henderson, Fabinho. A few bit part players who came in to help with lighten the load. But overall, you knew what this team was. Again, the forward three, 30 games. 31 games, 24 games. So much cohesion in this team and this squad. What Simon Strachan then goes on to talk about is the 3 Ps. And let me read this out for you because I just think it's fascinating and I think it really highlights what's wrong at Liverpool. If you have 2 teams with equal talent and you have a team that's played together for 3 years, a team that's played together for 1 year, the team that's played together for 3 years will have more cohesion and chemistry and therefore will beat the other team with the equal amount of talent. But the 3 Ps are the important things when you're creating and harnessing cohesion. 3 Ps. So they have a level of understanding between their teammates in the way that they play. They have a level of understanding in their particular role or position that they play within their team. And they have a level of understanding of the program, such as the game plan, the way the coach wants them to play. Those 3 Ps are Liverpool 2019-2020 down to a T. And you can see where I'm going with this. So that sort of idea is not necessarily revolutionary, and it's a version of shared experience or human capital. Human capital. But just purely from a skill model, if you were to look at these 2 teams and you measured it on skill, these 2 teams would actually look identical because they have the same amount of skill. If the team, for example, that had high levels of understanding, if you removed one of those players and replaced the player with the same amount of skill, effectively, from a skill perspective, again, it makes no difference. But from an understanding perspective, you've actually not just removed skill, you've actually removed a level of understanding from the teammates and you've replaced it with the same amount of skill. But what you haven't done is you haven't replaced the level of understanding. So you've actually reduced the amount of understanding in that particular group. Okay, and I think that's the big thing for me. In my tactical preview before the game, I was highlighting the fact that I think you need Henderson in this midfield. Yes, he's an incredible leader and he'll be great for you as a centre-back, but you're missing the understanding with the entire team if you can't put him in that midfield and have a midfield with DM and then Wijnaldum and Henderson. Thiago's a brilliant footballer and, takes the level up probably in chemistry after a few games because he's got so much class. But missing out on Henderson in midfield creates an effect and has a ripple effect to the understanding of Salah, Firmino, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Wijnaldum, Mane. It's such a big thing. And so going back to this season, let's have a look at this season's games because that's where the problem lies for me. Obviously less games played so far this season, but look how many centre-backs have played. Fabinho, 12 games. He's not even a centre-back. And also you've taken Fabinho out of that defensive midfield role or central midfield role. The amount of different centre-backs that you've had to play. The full-backs are the same. The goalkeeper's the same, sure. But that's a big heart of the team taken out. Then you've got Wijnaldum, Henderson, he's tried to get that happening, but the last 2 games he's played centre-back, it's a big, big loss to them. They haven't got the same chemistry, understanding that they had last season. And when you go to those 3 Ps, in terms of understanding the particular role or position they play within their team, it's not there. It's been dropped down massively from the different, Fabinho moving to centre-back, Henderson moving to centre-back, all these different changes here. And also, like I said, the ripple effect amongst each other in terms of interacting with each other. And the third one, the game plan. Big thing I spoke about last night was that the game plan for Liverpool needs tweaking because you've got teams that sit back like they have before, but because of that lack of chemistry, you've got a team that is still dominating games, but isn't able to find a way to score the goals in the same way that they were able to because they're not doing things as quickly as they were last season. So that's the big thing I just wanted to talk about here because I think it's absolutely fascinating and I think it's built on fact to a point here with Simon Strachan from Gain Analytics, and that whole cohesion has been massively lost. So what does Jurgen Klopp do? For me, I think Jurgen Klopp needs to get as many pieces of that puzzle back together, and that means playing Henderson in midfield. Does that mean bringing in someone like Militao on loan if you can go and do that? Another video I've done has been rating the centre-backs. But I think instead of moving one player here and another player there, Jurgen Klopp needs to get back to as much of a filled-in puzzle of the 2019-2020 season because it will have an impact on all the other players around him. That's the importance of Jordan Henderson in this team. Forget his talent. It's about his understanding, his leadership, and his understanding of the role that he plays, because it allows the understanding of all the players around him to have, to go up a notch, to create the cohesion that ends up creating the output for Liverpool. They need to sort that out. They need to sort it out quickly because the confidence is starting to drain. And, you know, I think a big thing last season was it was all down to the management. It was all down to the chemistry of this team because you brought in players from Sunderland, from Hull City, from Southampton. So Jurgen Klopp deserves the plaudits for that, but he needs to get back to that team and kind of steady the ship a little bit. Because I think if that comes, then of course, there is no way that Liverpool will be the Liverpool of last season. But can they get close? And if they can get close, will that be enough to get them another title? I think the way it's going at the moment, if you continue to play Jordan Henderson at the back, as well as he may play there, you're hurting this team. So you either need to have a different game plan. That needs to change wholeheartedly, and you need to invest in that to create chemistry, or you need to revert back to type. That is the problem that Liverpool have, in my opinion, right now. But I'd love to know what you guys think about it. Do you agree with me? Am I talking rubbish? Of course, I've backed it up with a little bit there from Simon Strachan from Gain Analytics. Go check out that podcast. But let me know what you think about this. Is it as simple as just getting one goal and then, you know, the walls will fall down? Of course, they scored, I think it was 7 in 14 shots against Liverpool. Since then, they've scored 1 goal in 62 shots. So, yes, I'm being a little bit harsh on them. But the problem is that it's become very, very predictable with Liverpool. And if you're going to be predictable, that's one thing, but sometimes teams can't even stop it. Liverpool have been playing with the same front three for a good few years now, and they haven't been able to be stopped. So it's down to the chemistry of those players more so than the game plan. Lots of decisions for Jurgen Klopp to make. He says it's the most difficult time in his management career. So it's going to be fascinating to see if they can turn it around, because what Man City have done is Man City might not be at the levels that they had previously, but they have a very cohesive unit there at the moment, and they're not conceding goals. Let me know what you think in the comments below, Liverpool fans. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this one. If you've enjoyed this video, then do me a favour, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's get ourselves to 70k, and I'll see you in the next one.